Qin Ran couldn't stand their smugness, and her voice dropped, cool and biting. 580,000 yuan? Truly impressive. Without hesitation, she grabbed the violin and slammed it onto the floor. The crash reverberated through the room, the strings snapping with a sharp, satisfying twang. Gasps erupted from every corner. Qin Yu's mother opened her mouth to retort but found herself choking on her fury. Unbothered, Qin Ran pulled out a chair with deliberate ease. "Sit down, auntie. Let's see who's bold enough to make you stand up again." Qin Ran's defiance wasn't born from recklessness but from a life shaped by hardship and neglect, forging her into someone who refused to bow to anyone. Her parents had split long ago, each leaving her behind like a discarded chapter of their lives. Her mother took her younger sister and married into a wealthy family, while her father spent his days in a haze of wasted time. Left behind, she grew up in her grandmother's care, alone, untaught, and increasingly withdrawn into an icy, impenetrable shell. Then, one day, her fragile world cracked further. Her grandmother fell gravely ill, and the estranged parents reappeared, ostensibly to discuss the elderly woman's care. But no sooner had they met than the air thickened with accusations, their voices rising in a cacophony of blame. The father, ever opportunistic, wielded the weight of the Lin family's name as a weapon, pressuring his ex-wife to take responsibility for both the grandmother and the girl. And so, with a begrudging sense of duty, Qin Ran and her ailing grandmother found themselves ushered into the polished halls of the Lin family's estate. Her mother, the lady of the house, aloof and uninterested, left the task of settling them to the maids, preferring to slip away for some peace. The staff, trained in etiquette but steeped in quiet disdain, eyed the girl's humble appearance and whispered their judgments behind tight-lipped smiles. Yet, they dared not overstep, mindful of their employer's reputation. Unbeknownst to all, the Lin family patriarch had been observing the scene from the upper balcony. Intrigued, he muttered something about the girl's unruly record at her previous school. A troublemaker in such a pretty package, he mused. This should be interesting. Come on, let's meet them. When the patriarch and his son, Lin Jingxian, descended, the latter's gaze lingered on the girl. She wasn't just striking, there was a defiance in her eyes that set her apart. The patriarch, however, carried himself with practiced charm, extending a welcoming hand. "Madam, the journey must have been exhausting. Please, sit and have some tea," he offered smoothly. Then, turning his attention to the girl, he added, "As for you, Qin Ran, Ning Qing has already told me about your situation. Don't worry, I'll see to it that your schooling is taken care of." The elderly woman offered a flurry of gratitude, her voice trembling with sincerity. As the conversation meandered, Qin Ran's mother returned, a younger sister skipping alongside her like a beam of sunlight cutting through the dual room. Spotting her brother, Qin Yu darted toward him, her voice lilting with excitement, dripping with the kind of affection that demanded to be the center of attention. She ignored both her grandmother and elder sister completely. "Brother, you're so busy. How do you even have time to come home?" Qin Yu's tone was light and playful, her words as sugary as the sweets she likely spent her afternoons indulging in. Lin Jingxian replied with a casual smile, "There's a project nearby, I thought I'd stop by." Her bubbly charm was magnetic, and it wasn't hard to see why their parents adored her. Meanwhile, she traded polite pleasantries with her stepfather before turning toward her sister with an exaggerated gasp. "It's so great to see you again." "Welcome to the Lin family," she chirped, her sweetness sharp enough to sting. But Qin Ran wasn't fooled. She knew her sister too well. Qin Yu was a master of veiled cruelty, a green tea girl who thrived on playing innocent while pulling others down. Qin Ran had spent much of her childhood covering for her sister's schemes, earning her nothing but her parents' disdain. Sensing Qin Ran's silence, Qin Yu's smile faltered, replaced by a colder, more calculating edge. "Now that you're here at the Lin house," she said, her voice suddenly pointed, "you'd better follow the rules. If you upset father, he won't hesitate to throw you out." Qin Ran said nothing, her expression unreadable, but her grip on the chair's arm tightened. Abandonment had shaped her, being raised by her grandmother after her parents discarded her had left her guarded and frigid. And now, forced back into the Lin household by circumstance, she felt like an uninvited ghost haunting someone else's polished dream. That night, Qin Ran lay awake in the unfamiliar bed, insomnia her only companion. Memories of isolation clawed at her, sharp and relentless. The ache behind her eyes grew into a dull throb as she recalled every slight, every whispered insult from her past. Reaching for her sleeping pills in desperation, she found the bottle empty, its silence as mocking as her sister's earlier words. The next morning, Mr. Lin arrived with bad news. "I'm sorry, Qin Ran, but getting you into Yuncheng First High didn't work out. I'll ask around at other schools," he offered, his tone laced with awkward sympathy. Qin Ran's mother, ever quick to weaponize her daughter's missteps, cut in with a biting remark. "When you got into that school before, it was all on your own effort. We didn't have to lift a finger. Look at you now." Sensing an opportunity to twist the knife, Qin Yu, the quintessential green tea sister, chimed in with feigned concern. "Mom, don't say that. You know how easily upset my sister gets with her temper. Besides, Yuncheng First High isn't just any school. It's the best in the city. Their principal has such a prestigious reputation. Only students with both top grades and excellent character are accepted." The girl had heard enough. Irritated by the fake sympathy swirling around her, she reached into her pocket and produced an envelope. "I have a recommendation letter from the principal of Yuncheng First High," she said flatly. "No need to bother Uncle with finding me a school." Her mother froze, then burst into an angry tirade. "Enough! If you don't care about embarrassing yourself, at least think about me. Where do you get off spewing nonsense like that?" Qin Ran didn't flinch under her mother's fury. Adjusting her hat with a deliberate calm, she replied, "It's no big deal. I'll head to the school now." Her mother's face turned ashen with rage, and she clutched her chest as though her temper might truly give her a heart attack. Between muttered curses and insults, she barely noticed the sharp shift in Lin Jingxuan's expression. His eyes were fixed on the envelope in Qin Ran's hand. "Wait," he said, his voice unsteady. "That seal, it's Principal Shu's personal stamp. She might not be lying after all." The halls of Yuncheng First High were abuzz with energy, students swarming the infirmary like moths to a flame. The reason? A rumor about an insanely handsome new face working there had spread like wildfire. "Excuse me, are you here for medicine or a checkup?" one of the staff asked, trying to manage the crowd. A girl at the front of the line flushed, barely managing to stammer, "Medicine. Just a bottle of vitamin C, please." As the girls queued up, they stole glances at the figure inside, the perfect arch of his eyebrows, the sculpted curve of his lips, and that face, so effortlessly striking it seemed crafted to be admired. The excited chatter and stolen glances were cut short by the shrill interruption of the class bell. The students reluctantly dispersed, leaving the once-packed infirmary eerily quiet. Inside, Lu Jiaoyin spun lazily in his office chair, throwing a pointed complaint at Cheng Jun seriously. "Boss, what's the deal? You're the prince of the capital, yet you're here, slumming it as a school medic. And don't even get me started on how all your work somehow becomes my problem." Cheng Jun didn't bother looking up from the papers he was signing. His tone was as frosty as ever. "If handling this trivial stuff is such a burden, maybe I should step in?" "No. Didn't think so. Besides, imagine the outrage from your high-paying clients if they knew you were giving free checkups to school kids." Their banter was interrupted by the sound of sharp, purposeful footsteps. A girl entered, her stride carrying an air of cool detachment. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clipped and no nonsense, "do you sell sleep aids here?" Both men glanced up at the sound, momentarily distracted by her striking features. Sorry, miss," Lu Jiaoyin recovered first, flashing an apologetic grin. "Sleep aids are prescription only. Not something we can just hand out." The girl tilted her hat lower, her expression unchanging. "No problem," she said curtly, her tone as cold as her demeanor. "I was just asking." And with that, she turned on her heel and walked out, leaving the room momentarily stunned in her wake. Cheng Jun called out just as the girl was about to leave. Wait. I'll get the medicine for you. Lu Xiaoyin's eyes widened. Boss, you can't just hand out sleep aids like candy. Cheng Jun remained calm, his tone clipped but assured. I know what I'm doing. This is a 3-day dose. If you need more, you'll have to come back. The girl hesitated, her cool facade cracking just slightly as she eyed the neatly wrapped packet and a small bottle of eye drops he handed over. For the first time, a flicker of gratitude softened her features. Thanks, she murmured before turning and striding out. As soon as she was gone, Lu Jiaoyan leaned sideways, eyebrows raised. You just gave it to her? What if something happens? Cheng Jun smirked. Relax. It's not real medication. Just some herbal candies to help with relaxation. Perfectly harmless. Meanwhile, back in the school's faculty lounge, a storm was brewing. The principal had decided to place a notoriously troublesome new student into Class 1, but the homeroom teacher, Ms. Li, was having none of it. Principal, no offense, but there's no way I'm letting a walking disaster into my class. Look at her record, fights, truancy, disciplinary actions, you name it. She's a menace. Honestly, just holding her file makes me feel dirty. Ms. Li's words drew a sharp response from another teacher, Mr. Jiao, who frowned disapprovingly. Isn't that a bit harsh? As educators, it's not our place to pick and choose students. Easy for you to say, Ms. Li shot back, crossing her arms. She's not being dumped into your class. If she was, you'd feel differently. If she were my student, Mr. Jiao retorted with a calm but determined air, I'd take full responsibility for her. His words drew a bitter laugh from Ms. Li. A real saint, aren't you, Mr. Jiao? No wonder you've been stuck in the same position for 20 years. The principal, sensing the tension crackling between the two teachers, jumped in hastily, trying to defuse the situation. Mr. Jiao, are you willing to take on this student? Mr. Jiao straightened up, visibly nervous but resolute. I'm willing. Ms. Li, relieved to offload the burden, didn't waste a second. She snatched up the file and all but tossed it toward him. Great, problem solved. Principal, I've got an exam to prep for, so I'll leave you to it. With that, she spun on her heel and walked off. Once she was gone, Mr. Jiao opened the student's file and began skimming through the attached papers. As his eyes fell on the test sheets, his breath caught. The answers were brilliant, sharp, innovative, and impeccably executed. This girl, he muttered to himself, astonished, is a hidden gem. Meanwhile, on her way back to class, Qin Ran held the small bottle of eye drops in her hand, a faint warmth spreading through her chest. The school doctor really paid attention, she thought. He noticed my sleeplessness, even the redness in my eyes. How thoughtful. But then her brow furrowed slightly. Why does he seem so familiar? Where have I seen him before? In the classroom, Mr. Jiao stood at the podium, his voice firm as he slapped his palm on the desk to get everyone's attention. Settle down, everyone. Today, we're welcoming a new classmate. The room buzzed immediately with whispers. Did you hear? The new girl is apparently Qin Yu's sister, one student murmured. Unbelievable. And she got placed in our class? Must have pulled some strings, another scoffed. Xu Yaoguang, as usual, remained unimpressed. Don't know. Don't care. This earned a smirk from his desk mate. Oh, right. We all know the only thing you care about is Qin Yu. The moment the word gossip hung in the air, the class erupted like a shaken soda can. I heard Qin Yu's sister got into fights back in Ninghai village, got expelled, and held back a year. She'd had to pull some strings to get into our school, one student chimed in. A boy with streaks of green in his hair scoffed, so basically, she's some village thug? Bet she's all beefed up and nasty looking. Xu Yaoguang, uninterested in their chatter, stood abruptly. You guys carry on. I'm heading to the auditorium to watch Qin Yu play the violin. As he made his exit, Qin Ran walked in. The two barely missed colliding in the doorway. The second she entered, The classroom noise died as if someone had hit the mute button. She was striking, an effortless blend of confidence and allure, and no guy in the room seemed immune. "Chin Ran, you'll sit next to Lin Siran," Mr. Gao said with a nod, gesturing toward an empty desk. "Got it," the girl replied, her voice smooth and steady. She made her way to her seat, a faint trace of her floral perfume trailing behind her. The boys were instantly electrified. "Dibs," one whispered urgently to his friend. "I'm calling it, she's mine." His friend shook his head, half amused, half resigned. "Good luck with that, man. She's not exactly low maintenance." As Chin Ran settled into her seat, she exchanged polite introductions with Lin Siran, while the boys at the back continued to buzz with excitement. It was clear, someone was definitely going to strategize an excuse to talk to her after school. On her first day at school, the girl managed to attract the attention of the class troublemakers. After school, a group of them crept after her, shadowing her to an empty stretch of road. One of them, clearly the self-appointed leader, swaggered forward with a sleazy grin. "Hey there, new girl. Don't be in such a rush to leave," he said, his tone oozing with mock hospitality. "Stick around, make our day. We've even planned a little welcome party for you, how could you possibly refuse?" As they closed in, oblivious to their surroundings, Lu Jiaoyin and Cheng Jun happened to stroll by in the distance. Their original plan had been to grab dinner, but the scene unfolding ahead stopped them in their tracks. "She looks like she's in trouble," Lu Jiaoyin said, already rolling up his sleeves. "Go ahead," Cheng Jun replied, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Let's see this heroic entrance of yours." Unaware of the impending audience, the ringleader reached for the girl, only to regret it instantly. Without so much as a warning, she moved first, grabbing his arm and twisting it back with such force that he yelped in pain. "What are you two standing around for? Help me out," he screeched to his buddies, his bravado cracking under the strain. His friends hesitated for a beat before rushing forward, only to meet similar fates. In mere seconds, the three troublemakers were sprawled on the ground, clutching various parts of their anatomy and moaning in defeat. The girl dusted her hands off and shot them a steely look. "Consider this a warning. Next time I catch you messing with a girl, you won't walk away with all three legs intact." Lu Jiaoyin stood frozen, his jaw slightly slack. "No way. Did she just take out three guys by herself? In less than a minute?" Cheng Jun, however, seemed unbothered. He studied the girl with a new kind of interest, one corner of his mouth quirking up as he murmured, "She's even more intriguing than I thought. I'll have to find an excuse to get to know her." As Chin Ran brushed past him, she murmured a soft, "Thank you." Lu Jiaoyin's reaction was instantaneous, and far from calm. "Thank you? To him? What the heck? I was the one about to save her." His ranting was relentless, his tone indignant. "This is outrageous." He huffed in disbelief before finally turning back to survey the aftermath of the fight. Coldly, he asked, "What about those three students? What do we do with them?" "They're trash," Cheng Jun replied, his voice flat but sharp. "They don't belong in Yuncheng No. 1 High. Handle them. Permanently." Meanwhile, at a high-end hotel, Lu Jiaoyin and Cheng Jun lounged in a corner booth, making small talk with Principal Shu. "Principal Shu," Cheng Jun started, casual but curious, "you've been heading Yuncheng No. 1 High for 3 years now. What's with the sudden decision to step down? Thinking of swapping your graduation sash for retirement scarves?" Principal Shu chuckled, his answer layered with intrigue. "I found someone to take over. I've been waiting a long time for them, and now that they've finally agreed, it's time for me to head back to Beijing and prepare for the transition." "And who is this mysterious successor of yours?" Lu Jiaoyin asked, an eyebrow quirked. "What kind of talent could possibly catch your eye?" The principal smiled knowingly. "That's a secret for now. She hasn't accepted yet, but she will. I'm confident of it." Lu Jiaoyin leaned forward, curious despite himself. "Even Shu family's heir wouldn't take the job? She must be pretty extraordinary." not curious about who it might be?" Principal Shu asked, tilting his head at Cheng Jun. Cheng Jun just shrugged, his lips curving into that ever-present smirk. "I have a guess." At the same time, Yuncheng No. 1 High was abuzz with fresh gossip. The new transfer student wasn't just a fighter, apparently, she was a violinist, too. Her melody had floated across campus, haunting and beautiful, drawing attention from every corner. "Xu Xiao, you really missed out," a student said, nudging Xu Yaoguang. "She's not only insanely talented, but also drop-dead gorgeous." Xu Yaoguang barely blinked, his expression disinterested. "Doesn't matter," he said coolly. "I'm only interested in Qin Yu." The sound of a violin suddenly drifted from the practice room, and Xu Yaoguang froze, his heart skipping a beat. That melody, he'd never heard it before. Consumed by curiosity, he bolted up the stairs, throwing the door open in one swift motion. But the room was empty. Breathing hard, his companion caught up and panted, "Where'd they go? Did they jump out the window or something?" Xu Yaoguang stood still, lost in thought. Whoever it was, they were clearly avoiding being seen. So, someone other than Qin Yu could play the violin at this level in this school. Interesting. Meanwhile, Qin Ran sat on the lawn below, gulping for air, her heart pounding. That was close. Way too close. They'd almost caught her. On her way back to class, though, her spirits lifted. After all, the violin was the only thing that ever made her feel truly free. Back in the classroom, her desk mate leaned in with a grin. "Qin Ran, did you finish the homework the teacher assigned?" "It's due." The question hit her like a splash of cold water. Homework? Crap. She'd been so busy having fun she'd completely forgotten about it. Flashing an easygoing smile, she asked, "Can I just not turn it in?" Lin Siran shot her a knowing look. "Nope. Don't hand it in, and you'll get called out in front of everyone." With no way out, Qin Ran sighed and grabbed her pen, scribbling out a few answers hastily. Then she tossed the paper to Lin Siran. "Look, I'm terrible at this stuff. Cut me some slack on the bad answers, yeah?" Lin Siran smiled warmly, her eyes sparkling with reassurance. "It's fine. I'm the class representative, remember? If there's anything you don't understand, just come to me, I'll make sure you get it." That's when Qin Ran noticed the small emblem pinned to Lin Siran's chest and, leaning closer, whispered, "Wait, you're a Yangshi fan too." Lin Siran's excitement practically burst out of her. She grabbed Qin Ran in a bear hug, almost shaking her. "Are you serious? You're a hardcore Yangshi fan? Do you want me to teach you how to make a fan account to vote for her? I'm the expert in this, trust me." Qin Ran blinked, speechless. Thanks." Lin Siran beamed. "Relax, Ran. With your love for Yangshi as my motivation, I promise I'll help you boost your grades." After school, as they walked together, Lin Siran began her unsolicited crash course on the school's social dynamics. So, first rule of survival, steer clear of Qin Yu. She's from the Lin family, big deal. And Xu Yaoguang? Yeah, same story. Also, there's a vocational school nearby, and their kingpin is someone you definitely don't want to mess with. Her words had barely landed when they looked up to see the very kingpin she'd just mentioned, storming out of the dorms, fuming. Moments later, as Qin Ran and Lin Siran headed home, their path was suddenly blocked by the vocational school's infamous troublemaker, the very person Lin Siran had just mentioned earlier. Lin Siran froze, leaning toward Qin Ran and whispering, "Let's just avoid this. We don't want a fight." But Qin Ran didn't so much as flinch. She stepped in front of Lin Siran, shielding her with calm determination. "We're not going anywhere." From behind them, two male classmates, Qiao Sheng and Xu Yaoguang, appeared, their presence a small flicker of hope. Lin Siran tugged at Qin Ran's arm, her voice urgent. "Come on, let's go while we can." But the kingpin wasn't about to let them off that easily. His voice was a sharp bark of command, "Stay right there." The boys strode briskly toward Qin Ran, their gazes locking in a silent clash. She didn't flinch, not even when his hand lifted as if to touch her. Her voice rang out, sharp and icy, cutting through the tension like a blade. "Get your filthy paw away from me." Behind him, his lackeys froze, cold sweat breaking out as they watched the scene unfold. Who the hell does this girl think she is? No one talks to the boss like that and walks away in one piece. Lin Siran, however, was a trembling mess. Her legs wobbled, and before anyone could react, she began to hyperventilate, practically fainting on the spot. Without hesitation, Qin Ran swept her into a protective embrace, her expression unreadable as she murmured, "It's okay. I've got you." Qin Ran's gaze shifted back to the so-called kingpin, her tone now calm but no less commanding. "Wei Zihang, get your boys out of here. They're scaring my desk mate." The boy's menacing demeanor cracked into something absurd. He laughed, genuinely amused. "So it is you, Ran. I thought I was mistaken for a second. All right, you heard her, clear out. Don't just stand there glaring. You're blocking my Ran's path." Lin Siran, wide-eyed, gaped at the scene. Her mind raced, utterly floored. Ran knows the school bully? And not just knows him, he listens to her. Before she could fully process what was happening, Qin Ran turned to Wei Zihang with an annoyed huff, smacking his arm lightly. "Find someone to take my desk mate home. She's too freaked out to walk properly." One of his lackeys, clearly confused, whispered, "Boss, who is she?" Hands shoved casually into his pockets, Wei Zihang smirked and shot back without hesitation. "The boss of Ninghai village. My ancestor, obviously." With that, he trailed after Qin Ran like an obedient puppy, leaving his crew behind to exchange bewildered glances. Not one of them dared to say a word. Evening descended over the neighboring villa, the warm glow of dinner juxtaposed by a brewing storm. Qin Yu, ever the instigator, seized the moment as she picked at her meal. "Mom, I heard Sis got into another fight. Sounds like it was pretty bad this time." Ning Qing's reaction was instantaneous, her anger bubbling over. "That useless girl. All she does is cause trouble wherever she goes. Why did I have to end up with such a wretched daughter?" Before the tirade could build further, the front door creaked open. Qin Ran's voice, as calm as it was cutting, sliced through the tense air. "Sorry to interrupt your dinner. I'm just here to grab something. Won't take long." She headed for the stairs without waiting for an invitation. "You two keep eating. I'll see what she's up to," Ning Qing huffed, rising from her seat and following after. She stopped at the doorway, glaring at Qin Ran's back. "Who do you think you're sulking at with that sour face? I gave you a beautifully decorated pink room, but you insist on staying in that dingy school dorm." Her tone sharpened. "And what's this I hear about you getting into a fight with those vocational school kids?" Pausing mid-step, Qin Ran tilted her head slightly, a flicker of disbelief in her eyes. "Ah, same old Qin Yu. Twisting the truth, stirring the pot, and fanning flames as usual." Swinging her bag onto her shoulder, she turned, her voice laced with cold indifference. "I didn't get into a fight." She stepped toward the door, throwing in a parting shot over her shoulder. "And for the record, I've never liked pink. That's Qin Yu's thing." Ning Qing watched her leave without a word, a tangle of annoyance and resignation on her face. This girl. Always so exasperating. She'd rather rough it in a dorm than stay here in the villa. Doesn't even want the designer clothes and bags I got her. Fine, let her go. Less trouble for me to deal with. Qin Ran had always lived by the mantra, out of sight, out of mind. It was a philosophy that served her well, especially when navigating the chaos of her life. She hadn't expected much when she walked into the bank that afternoon, but the snide glance from the teller was hard to miss. "Miss, I'm afraid this transaction requires more specialized assistance," the woman said, her tone dripping with condescension. Qin Ran didn't flinch. Instead, she produced her diamond card with the calm precision of someone dropping a microphone. The transformation was instant. The teller's face paled as she stammered through an apology. I am so sorry. This is beyond my authority. I'll escalate it immediately. Please forgive the delay. Moments later, the manager appeared, practically tripping over himself with an ingratiating smile. Your transaction for Yuncheng No. 1 High's dorm fees has been processed, Miss Qin. Thank you for your patience. Here's your card. Qin Ran accepted it with a cool nod. Thanks. She was out the door before they could say another word. Back at school, she walked down the street, phone in hand, aimlessly scrolling through the internet. A random post caught her eye, a task that piqued her curiosity. Before she knew it, she was standing in the dimly lit school clinic, her voice breaking the stillness. Excuse me, are you hiring part-time help? Liu Jiaoyan blinked at her in disbelief, then blurted, You came to the clinic this late to ask about that? He couldn't help but marvel at her audacity, even as his mind raced. Are you serious? What kind of high schooler casually walks in here claiming they're broke? Yes, I am, Qin Ran replied matter-of-factly. I'm low on funds and need the cash. Liu Jiaoyan exchanged a helpless glance with Cheng Jun, who looked equally torn. It's not that I don't want to help, Liu Jiaoyan thought, but Jun Ji hates outsiders in his space, especially girls. Before he could offer an excuse, a voice cut through the hesitation, calm, measured, and impossibly magnetic. I need someone to cook. Can you cook? Qin Ran turned toward the source, her gaze landing on Cheng Jun's absurdly handsome face. For a moment, she could only stare, swallowing her surprise. Ah, so that's why this place is always swarming with girls. She then responded softly, I can. So would it work if I report here every noon and evening, and you pay me daily? Cheng Jun nodded in agreement. Jun Ji, you didn't forget the housekeeper is coming tomorrow, did you? Cheng Jun replied coolly, of course not. Have her go straight to the villa instead. Liu Jiaoyan looked utterly baffled at this exchange, his thoughts a tangled mess. This is so weird. Since when does Jun Ji allow strangers to help out, let alone girls? Back in the classroom, Qin Ran returned to her desk without a second glance. It was time for the physics test. She stared blankly at the exam paper, lost in thought, when she noticed her deskmate stealing glances at her. Turning to face her, she asked, Why do you keep looking at me? Is there something on my face? Flustered, her deskmate stammered, No. Ran, why did the school bully listen to you yesterday? Qin Ran burst into laughter. Because I used to be pretty famous. As they chatted, the class physics rep, Xu Yaoguang, raised his voice to announce, Time's almost up. Everyone, get ready to hand in your papers. Lin Seran panicked at the cue, turning frantically to Qin Ran. Ran, the physics teacher is a total tyrant. If you're not done, hurry and copy from me. Qin Ran glanced at the test questions, feeling utterly bored. This stuff is child's play, she thought, but to keep up her carefully curated, bad student image, she resigned herself to leaving it all blank. Xu Yaoguang, collecting test papers, caught Qin Ran's blatant disregard for the exam out of the corner of his eye. His mind immediately echoed the rumors he'd heard, the queen of underachievers, the bulldozer of delinquency. But as he finally got a clear look at her face, the urge to rescind every judgment was almost unbearable. Qin Ran's charm is something no man can resist. No wonder. The capital's elite always play by their own rules. Cheng Jun's lunch ingredients probably get delivered straight from Michelin-starred kitchens. That evening, Ning Qing stepped out of a sleek luxury car, smoothing the front of her coat as her nerves buzzed. The little sister-in-law from the capital is visiting today, I need to make a good impression. No slip-ups allowed. She glanced around, scanning the area for clues, only to spot Qin Ran standing coolly outside an upscale restaurant. Her brows furrowed in confusion. What's she doing here? Shouldn't she be holed up in the dorm by now? After double-checking that no one else was watching, Ning Qing marched over, her tone sharp enough to slice through glass. What are you doing here? Qin Ran shrugged nonchalantly, her reply dripping with apathy. Got some business. Business? Ning Qing's eyes narrowed. What kind of business? Stop hanging out with shady people and get back to school. The tirade roared on like an unstoppable storm, 10 full minutes of pointed reprimands, spitfire accusations, and disapproving glares. Qin Ran endured it with stoic silence, standing firm despite the relentless downpour of criticism. Just as Ning Qing was preparing to unleash yet another volley, a restaurant server appeared, delivering a carefully wrapped package of ingredients. If not for the impeccable timing of that delivery, Qin Ran might have been the first to crack, or perhaps the entire scene would have unraveled with the sheer weight of Ning Qing's scorn. Ning Qing watched the car disappear down the street, her anger bubbling over as she stomped her foot. "Qin Yu's heading to the capital soon, and if anything goes wrong because of you, I won't let you off the hook." Her fury spilled into the crisp evening air, but as the adrenaline ebbed, her thoughts circled back to the man she'd just seen. He wasn't half bad, decent aura, too. But that car? So basic. No way he's someone important. Lost in her musings, a sleek luxury vehicle purred to a stop right in front of her. Out stepped a young, stunningly elegant woman, exuding effortless refinement. "What are you doing here? Why aren't you inside?" The woman's gaze flicked over Ning Qing, her expression betraying faint disdain. Ning Qing, still as tacky as ever, her clothes and bag were out of fashion in the capital ages ago. How thoroughly unimpressive. Catching sight of her sister-in-law, Ning Qing quickly plastered on a sycophantic smile, leaning in with exaggerated friendliness. But the woman didn't even acknowledge her groveling, her attention instead drawn to the departing car. That license plate. It looks familiar. When did Yun Cheng start attracting bespoke luxury vehicles? As they walked into the restaurant, Ning Qing trailed behind, her every word a nod of deference, her dignity abandoned at the door. Later, on the ride back, Cheng Jun broke the silence with a teasing lilt. "Was that your relative back there?" Qin Ran responded casually, "Yeah." Cheng Jun chuckled, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Really?" She didn't seem like it. Her style, and that car, scream wealth. Qin Ran offered a faint, knowing smile but said nothing, the evening's tangled threads quietly settling into place. Qin Ran was engrossed in her game, tossing out a half-hearted response. "Your car's not bad either." Meanwhile, she mused to herself, this guy really plays the underdog act well. Just the custom sound system in here is probably worth 10 of Ning Qing's cars. Cheng Jun, his curiosity piqued, glanced her way. "What game are you playing so intently?" Without looking up, Qin Ran shot back with casual dismissal. "You wouldn't know even if I told you. You don't exactly seem the gaming type." Her jab left Cheng Jun momentarily speechless, though a flicker of something old and bittersweet stirred in his mind. Memories, unbidden, surfaced like ripples across still water. After dinner, back at the Lin family home, a poised matron sipped tea with Mr. Lin, indulging in idle chatter. "I heard Ning Qing brought home another stray. I imagine you've been cleaning up her messes again?" Mr. Lin replied with a composed smile. "Not at all. That girl, Qin Ran, has some mettle. Got herself into Yun Cheng #1 high on her own. Doesn't strike me as the wayward type you're imagining. Then again, with a sister-in-law like mine, her kid was bound to have some fight in her. A barking dog doesn't bite, after all. You do well not to be fooled by her quiet demeanor." The matron arched an eyebrow. "In this family, I only recognize Qin Yu as my niece." Mr. Lin leaned back, his tone turning brisk. "By the way, sister, Master Wei has been looking for a disciple. I'm planning to take my daughter to the capital to pay him a visit soon." At that, the woman's eyes lit up. If we could connect with Master Wei, the Lin family's reputation would soar. Upstairs, the strains of a violin carried through the halls as Qin Yu practiced with single-minded determination. Ning Qing, watching her daughter push herself so hard, murmured a soft reminder to rest before turning and leaving the room, her steps hushed and deliberate. Going downstairs, Qin Yu's eye caught a crumpled piece of paper on the floor. Unfolding it, she froze, her breath hitching. It was an original music score, meticulously penned, its brilliance undeniable. Unable to contain her curiosity, she bolted out of her room, ready to ask who had written it. But when she caught sight of her mother, words caught in her throat. Back in her room, Qin studied the sheet closely, her fingers tracing the complex notations. The rhythm and technique were master level. If she mastered this piece, it could undoubtedly catapult her to fame. Yet the sudden, almost mystical appearance of the score nagged at her. Could it be Qin Ran's? She quickly dismissed the thought. Her sister couldn't play the violin to save her life. Qin Yu's eyes gleamed as a plan formed. She'd perfect the piece, claim it as her own, and bury its origins for good. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Qin Ran, Ninghai Village's infamous bully-turned-housekeeper, and Lu Jiaoyin, was grumbling between bites of her cooking. "This is too delicious for me to have made it," he mumbled, causing Cheng Jun to look at him with a mix of amusement and exasperation. Qin Ran, nearby, had to physically restrain herself from smacking him with a ladle. Task or no task, she was reaching her limit. Her phone buzzed suddenly, slicing through her resolve. Picking it up, she saw a new message. It was from that same lunatic client, upping their offer by 5 times the previous amount. Her irritation flared as she fired back a response, "I wouldn't take this job if you paid me double that. Do yourselves a favor and stop asking." After firing off the text, Qin Ran carried 2 plates of food to the table. Lu Jiaoyin, still mid-grumble, turned to Cheng Jun. "She rejected the offer again," he said, shaking his head. "She even told us to give up. 5 times isn't enough? What's next, 50? Qin Ran, overhearing, nearly choked. "Why does that sound so familiar?" Noticing the feast laid out, Cheng Jun said lightly, "Sit and eat with us." But Qin Ran stood, brushing him off with, "Not today. I have another dinner to attend." Her casual tone barely masked something deeper. "Where are you headed?" "I'll drive you," Cheng Jun offered quickly. Qin Ran glanced at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. The Enu Hotel. Without another word, they were out the door, leaving a bewildered Lu Jiaoyin behind. "Since when does Cheng Jun skip meals just to play chauffeur?" he muttered. At the Enu Hotel, Qin Ran barely let the car come to a full stop before hopping out. "Thanks for the ride," she called, vanishing toward the entrance. But she hadn't made it far before her phone buzzed. Answering it, she was greeted by the same persistent client. "The offer's been increased to 50 times. Still not interested?" Qin Ran's voice turned ice cold. "Send me that idiot's information." Moments later, the file arrived. Her eyes gleamed as she skimmed it, a sly grin spreading across her face. "Daughter of the infamous clan, huh? Perfect. Let's see how you enjoy my brand of payback." Meanwhile, in one of Enu's private rooms, a cluster of relatives surrounded Qin Yu and her mother, their praise as lavish as it was insincere. "Such a good husband, such a talented daughter," they gushed, piling on compliments like butter on toast. The room was buzzing with idle chatter when Qin Ran made her entrance, cutting through the thick air like a blade. Her sharp gaze landed on her aunt and cousin, standing awkwardly to the side. She crossed over, a frown pulling at their features. "Why aren't you sitting?" she asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. Her aunt hesitated before answering, "There aren't any chairs left." Qin Ran's eyes flickered across the room, her lips tightening when she noticed Qin Yu's prized violin seated comfortably. The image only fueled her irritation. She strode forward, reaching for the violin case, but a housekeeper rushed to intercept her. "Careful! That violin's worth 580,000 yuan, the woman barked. Her words caused a ripple of astonished murmurs to spread through the crowd. "So extravagant," someone whispered, loud enough to be overheard. "Such a wealthy mother and such a talented daughter, buying something that expensive." Qin Yu and her mother basked in the attention, their self-satisfied smiles practically glowing. Qin Ran's lips curled into a smirk. She couldn't stand their smugness, and her voice dropped, cool and biting. 580,000 yuan? Truly impressive. Without hesitation, she grabbed the violin and slammed it onto the floor. The crash reverberated through the room, the string snapping with a sharp, satisfying twang. Gasps erupted from every corner. Qin Yu's mother opened her mouth to retort but found herself choking on her fury. Unbothered, Qin Ran pulled out a chair with deliberate ease. "Sit down, auntie. Let's see who's bold enough to make you stand up again." The housekeeper's shrill voice cut through the stunned silence. "You're insane! How dare you destroy Miss Qin Yu's violin?" Qin Ran turned to her, her gaze colder than ice. "It's just a piece of junk. If it's broken, I'll replace it. But tell me," she added with a steely edge, "since when does a housekeeper think it's her place to bark orders?" The tension in the room shattered like glass, sending the relatives into uneasy silence. Qin Ran gave her aunt a calm, reassuring nod. "Looks like dinner's ruined. Let's go, auntie. You, me, and Mu Ying can have a proper meal somewhere else." And with that, the chaos left in her wake felt like the only fitting encore. The housekeeper caught up, her tone laced with oily flattery and underlying venom. "Miss Qin Yu, your violin, she smashed it. Are you really just going to let that go?" Qin Yu offered a demure smile, a veneer of calm disguising her simmering anger. "It's fine. Let's not let a minor incident spoil the evening. Start serving dinner," she instructed with a practiced grace that only deepened the impression of her good daughter persona. Once the dishes were served, Qin Yu rose, wine glass in hand, addressing the room with carefully orchestrated sincerity. "Aunties and uncles, I must apologize on behalf of my elder sister for her behavior earlier." The response was almost instantaneous, a chorus of dismissive chuckles and reassurances. "Oh, it's nothing. We all know what she's like. Such a fiery temper since she was young. To be honest, now that she's left, we can enjoy dinner without feeling on edge." Laughter bubbled up, and the room quickly settled into a rhythm of toasts and cheerful chatter. The earlier chaos was swept away like crumbs from a banquet table. Meanwhile, after visiting their grandmother, Qin Ran and her aunt made plans to return home together. Her aunt's brow furrowed with worry as they walked. "You smashed her violin tonight. Won't you get into trouble when you're back?" Qin Ran waved the concern aside, her tone casual but firm. "Don't worry about it. It's a small matter, I'll handle it." Her aunt hesitated, her voice softening. "I know you were defending me, and I'm grateful for that. But Ran, I don't want you to ruin things with your mother because of me." Qin Ran's steps faltered, her expression clouding with thought. After a beat, she murmured, "Our relationship was already broken the day she decided I wasn't worth keeping." Her voice was steady, but the weight of her words lingered. Switching gears, she handed a small envelope to her aunt, her usual nonchalance masking a rare moment of vulnerability. "Mu Ying and Mu Nan will start at the new school soon, right? Here, take this, it's what I earned from my part-time job." Her aunt's eyes softened with gratitude, shaking her head lightly. "Just the thought means the world to me, Ran. That's more than enough." Qin Ran offered her a rare smile, but her thoughts remained distant, tangled in the unspoken fractures of her past. Qin Ran sighed internally at her aunt's refusal, a touch of exasperation flickering across her face. She couldn't understand why her aunt insisted on saving every cent she sent, claiming it was to be tucked away as her future dowry. Fine, she thought. Once the holiday break started, she'd visit and use that money to install an air conditioner for her aunt instead. As these thoughts brewed, Qin Ran reached into her pocket and pulled out a small bottle of medicine, about to hand it over. But before the moment could unfold, Ning Qing stormed over, her voice sharp and cold. "What are you two doing?" Mu Ying chimed in quickly, her tone innocent. Ran was just giving my mom some medicine." That explanation only fanned the flames. Ning Qing's expression twisted with fury, her voice rising. "Qin Ran, are you still fooling around with those ridiculous experiments of your grandfather's? He ruined himself, and you're following right in his footsteps. You'll only drive yourself insane, and now you're dragging your aunt into it." Her words landed like a slap, and Qin Ran's eyes went glacial in an instant. Something in her gaze made Ning Qing falter, a sliver of unease creeping in as she realized she might have overstepped. but she still justified herself by saying that the maternal instinct, though flawed, made her want to protect her daughter. Qin Ran didn't care to hear excuses. Her voice, icy and unrelenting, cut through the tension. "Don't you dare mention my grandfather. And I'm not insane, though you certainly seem determined to push me there." Her lips curved in a cold, humorless smile. "But really, who's taking care of me here in Yun City?" "Not you, that's for sure." Ning Qing's jaw tightened, but before she could respond, Qin Ran delivered the final blow, her voice as steady as steel. "Don't call me Ran Ran. We're not close. You don't get to meddle in my life, and you certainly don't get a say in what I do. Understand? And for the record, the medicine I'm giving my aunt isn't some backyard experiment, it's a pharmaceutical-grade trial drug from a national lab." With that, she turned back to her aunt, her cold resolve impenetrable, signaling the conversation was over. Lin Jingxian watched the heated argument between mother and daughter, sweat trickling down his back. The Qin family was proving to be more mysterious than he'd imagined. Pharmaceuticals from a national lab weren't something ordinary people could lay their hands on, not even his well-connected aunt in the capital had that kind of access. As Qin Ran brushed past him, the faint scent of her perfume lingered. His cheeks reddened as a thought struck him, this girl was something else. Every encounter left him feeling chilled, yet oddly drawn in. "I shouldn't meddle in your family matters," he began, hesitant but compelled, "but those words of yours earlier may be a bit much. Anyway, I've got something to attend to. Qin Ran, let me give you and your aunt a ride home. Consider it an apology for the misunderstanding." Qin Ran's gaze remained frosty. "No need." "Well, all right then," Lin Jingxian muttered, retreating awkwardly. "Take care." As Qin Ran and her aunt walked away, Ning Qing stood rooted in place, fuming. Her muttered grievances spilled out in sharp bursts. "That wretched girl, humiliating me like this. Let's see how I deal with her next time." Suddenly, Ning Qing froze, sensing someone behind her. She turned to see a cold-faced man gripping a scalpel, his expression sharp enough to cut. "Who did you just call insane?" the man demanded icily. Ning Qing squinted at the figure, trying to place her. A memory surfaced, the private dining restaurant a few days prior. Recognition dawned, and her nerves flared, though she masked it with mockery. Well, the street punk's upgraded to playing doctor. Think wearing a lab coat makes you unrecognizable. But the man's smirk only deepened, his sharp demeanor unwavering. His presence screamed trouble and retribution. "Junyi, she called us street punks, can you believe that?" Nearly died laughing. Cheng Jun's voice cut through the chatter, cold and deliberate. "I suggest you apologize to her. Otherwise, you'll face the consequences." Ning Qing scoffed, indignant. "Why should I apologize? It's my daughter I insulted. What business is it of yours? Who do you think you are to lecture me?" Cheng Jun's expression darkened, his tone unyielding. "Women like this need to be taught a lesson."